Hey everybody, Pete with Optics of Birding here again. Today I've got a really exciting announcement for you guys. A lot of you have probably seen some of our review videos that we've done on the Swarovski NL Pure binoculars. We've compared them to the NL Pure, EL, Victory SF, a lot of different binoculars on the market. Today we're going to be zooming out a little bit and I'm going to show you a new product that Swarovski just made. Let's get into it. All right, so it's June of 2024, and we've got some new additions to the NL Pure Pack. On the left here, I've got the NL 10 by 52. Yes, I really said that. It's a 10 by 52 binocular, a little bit of an atypical size, but we'll explain why that's here in a minute. On the other side, these binoculars look identical, but this is actually a 14 by 52 binocular. So the majority of you might be already familiar with this, but Swarovski just discontinued their 10 by 50 and their 12 by 50 EL binoculars. As soon as they did that, everybody was wondering what they were going to come out with next, and we finally have an answer. So again, this is the NL Pure 10 by 52, and they don't have an exact replacement for the EL 12 by 50. What they have instead now is the NL 14 by 52, and I don't think any binocular has been made in that size before, but it's really exciting. Can't wait to show you. Let's get into it. All right, so first thing we want to highlight, right, is the 14 by 52 and the 10 by 52, like I said, are the same size. I'm going to mostly be comparing the 10 by 42 and the 10 by 52 just to give you more of an apples to apples comparison. Just know that all the size differences are going to apply to the 14 by 52 as well, because the two 52 millimeter binoculars are the exact same size. So first things first, obviously that difference in the objective lens size is 10 millimeters. On the NL 10 by 42, the diameter of that lens is 42 millimeters across. On the 10 by 52, same story, that diameter is 52 millimeters across. And you think, why would I want to go up to a bigger binocular? The main reason is that that bigger lens gives you more brightness. On the outer diameter, and this is going to be important if you're trying to determine what chest harness to get to make sure the binoculars will fit. The outer diameter on the 10 by 52 is about 61 millimeters. The outer diameter on the 10 by 42 is about 52 millimeters. So that might not make a huge difference to some, but it is important for fitting it in a chest harness. I should note that they do come with the same functional side bag, which is the case that Swarovski made for the NL 10 by 42 when it was originally released. So you don't have to worry about getting a different size case for these. They both come with the same size case that's more than big enough for the binoculars plus the harness plus whatever cleaning accessories you might need. So even though they are different sizes, technically speaking, it's not anywhere near as much of a difference as it might seem initially. Just some more nuts and bolts for you. I did measure the end to end of the binocular. The 10 by 52, you've got about 7 inches with the eye cups twisted down, measuring from the eye cup to the end of the barrel. With the 10 by 42, you're saving about 3/4 of an inch. So it's about 6.3 inches from the eye cup to the end again. With the barrels all the way splayed out like this, on the 10 by 42, what I measured is about 5.2 inches, and on the 10 by 52, you're looking more at about 5.5, which is really not a huge difference at all. The biggest question that a lot of you are probably going to have is the weight difference. When I weighed the 10 by 42 with the objective lens covers on and nothing else, it came out right at about 1 pound and 15 ounces. The 10 by 52, on the other hand, was right at about 2 pounds and 5 ounces. So you just got to ask yourself, is that 6-ounce difference worth it? Do you think that that would be a burden for you? Really, like when I hold them both in my hands, I can barely notice a difference. I mean, yes, there's a little bit more weight on the front end with the 10 by 52, obviously, but I really don't think that that 6 ounces of extra weight that you have to carry makes it too much of a burden given the advantage that you gain in low light. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So the exit pupil of each binocular is about 1 millimeter apart. How do I find the diameter of the exit pupil? Well, you just divide the front lens diameter, which in this case is 52 millimeters, by the magnification, which in this case is 10. So 52 divided by 10, that gives you an exit pupil that's 5.2 millimeters in diameter. Likewise, on the 10 by 42, you get that smaller lens size, right? So that gives you a smaller exit pupil, which in this case is going to be only 4.2 millimeters. And in broad daylight, that difference is not really going to matter too much. But in low light situations, if you've got a lot of cloud cover, if you've got sunglasses on, if you are doing, some kind of observation when the sun is just coming up or going down, a lot of people will tell you that that difference can absolutely come into play. I mean, there's a reason that a lot of people use 10 by 50s and 10 by 54s and 10 by 56s. Same story here. The main reason that you'd go for the extra cost and the weight and the bulk of the 10 by 52 is just to get that extra brightness in those low light conditions. So it really does blow my mind because I'm already blown away by the 10 by 42's low light performance. It's never something I've had a problem with. But if I really want that extra edge, the 10 by 52 will give that to me. So again, the reason that that difference is important is if your pupil dilates in low light situations to let more light in. If it gets too big for the 10 by 42 millimeters, 4.2 millimeter extra pupil, you're going to need a bigger binocular to accommodate that. So with the 10 by 52, again, you've got that extra millimeter of diameter in the extra pupil. There are plenty of situations where that won't matter again, but in low light situations, like a lot of hunters that are looking for deer at first light, people that are doing nighttime observation for owls, or people that just want as much brightness as they can possibly get whenever they need it, the 10 by 52 is going to be awesome. All right, so now that we've gotten into most of the size differences, let's talk about how the actual image quality compares. Really, at the end of the day, I think that these are some of the best optics in the world. They both have the Swarovski technology that they're using, which means all of Swarovski's best glass, all of Swarovski's best lens coatings, and their field flattening lens, which gives you a nice distortion-free image across the whole field of view. And long eye relief eyepieces, all of that is going to be present in both binoculars, just like with all of their top-end products. Basically, it just means that you're going to get the best clarity, contrast, brightness that you can possibly get in a binocular. That's going to apply to both of these and the entire lineup, really. So the usual difference that you get when you go from a 10 by 42 up to the next size, like a 10 by 50, 10 by 52, 10 by 54, 10 by 56, typically the disadvantage or the trade-off, for that extra brightness is you typically lose a little bit of field of view, which I know is counterintuitive. You would think a bigger lens is going to give you more field of view. Usually not the case, though. Typically, also, you're going to lose some depth of field, and you're going to lose some close focus. And let me just highlight the differences as it applies to these specifically. So when I was looking at the field of view, to be honest, field of view I think is a really overrated feature in general. A big difference on paper might not actually translate to a big difference in practice, and just looking at these side by side without looking at the spec sheets at all, I can tell you it is almost indiscernible, the field of view difference. So with the 10 by 42, if I put something at the edge of my field of view as a reference and I looked at the very extreme end on the other side to see how wide it was, and I did the exact same thing with the 10 by 52, I really couldn't notice a difference at all. If I really looked at it like with a magnifying glass, not an actual magnifying glass, but figuratively speaking, I could probably convince myself that I was seeing a teeny tiny bit more with the 10 by 42, but it was nowhere near enough of a difference for me to say like definitively, yes, the smaller binocular has a wider field of view. So in terms of like whether or not you would spot certain birds that are flying around or deer on the side of a hill, there's not going to be a discernible difference there. The second thing that I mentioned is depth of field, right? So a lot of you photographers might know the concept of depth of field. Basically just means how much is the foreground and the background in focus compared to your subject that you're actually focusing on. Typically, like on a camera, when you increase your aperture to let more light in, you're going to be narrowing your depth of field so that your subject is in focus and the background and the foreground are really blurry. The same concept is going to translate to the binoculars. With binoculars, we don't talk about aperture in terms of f-stops. We just talk about the diameter of these lenses. So again, on a 10 by 42 millimeter binocular, you've got a 42 millimeter objective lens. On a 10 by 52, the objective lens is 52 millimeters, which is a bigger aperture. So typically, again, when you go up in lens size, you are going to narrow your depth of field, but miraculously, and I don't know how they accomplish this, at the end of the day, I have never claimed to be an optical engineer. I'm just a guy who loves using binoculars and comparing binocular A to binocular B. So in this particular case, I tried to test the depth of field as best as I could. I focused on a hummingbird feeder that was about 20 feet from me, and then a tree that was about 50 feet behind that, and then at the extreme end, it's something about 100 yards away. With both binoculars, I was trying to tell how much the foreground and the background was in focus. Of course, everybody might see this a little bit differently, but I couldn't tell a difference in the depth of field at all. So again, that's exclusively comparing the 10 by 52 NL Pure to the 10 by 42. Don't want to get mixed up here. I couldn't tell a difference in depth of field at all. So people say that they go to a smaller binocular, and one of the advantages is that they get the foreground and the background more in focus so that they can catch birds and other animals that are moving in the foreground and the background a little bit more easily. But I can't make that argument in this case because again, between these two sizes, the depth of field seemed exactly the same to me, which I think is pretty incredible. On the other hand, even though the 10 by 52 and the 14 by 52 are the same lens size, so again, both of those are 52 millimeters, you do also lose some depth of field when you go up in power. So I did notice a little bit less depth of field in the 14 by 52 than the 10 by 52. But that's the same story. Most photographers that are watching this, that when you zoom in more to a higher focal length, you're going to get less depth of field as well. So same story here. On the other hand, a little bit more of an apples to apples comparison is that I did compare the NL 14 by 52 to the SLC 15 by 56. And definitely, this one had a much wider field of view, number one, and it had a better depth of field as well. So, and that's not even, getting into the way better ergonomics on the NL. So if you're thinking about, do I want that 15 power or 14 power, and there are some other considerations that come into play, just know that the field of view and the depth of field are going to be way better on the NL Pure, not to mention all the other benefits. So I just wanted to mention that briefly. Probably the only real disadvantage that I could see for somebody that's a nature observer is the difference in the close focus. So typically, when you go up to a 50 or 52, 54, 56 millimeter binocular, whatever, that increased lens size in general means you're going to get less close focus, or in other words, a longer minimum focusing distance. So, typically we think of 10 by 50 binoculars and larger for hunting and astronomy and these things that are exclusively for long distance viewing. So it really doesn't make a difference to those people whether you can focus 10 feet or 6 feet or 15 feet or whatever, because you're looking, hundreds of yards away, or obviously planets are a little bit further than a few hundred yards. But when you're doing nature observation, you might want to look at everything from eagles that are far away to, beetles and caterpillars that are right at your feet, right? So with the 10 by 42 NL Pure, the close focus on paper is right at about 6.5 feet. When I compared them side by side, I didn't actually take any measuring tape or any of that, but what I did measure was I had to step about a yard back to get the same thing in focus with the 10 by 52. So, that means that the close focus on the 10 by 52 is approaching about 10 feet. Whether or not that makes a difference for you, you just have to decide if you're really adamant about looking at, plants and insects and hummingbirds that might come up really close to you. On the other hand, there are plenty of instances where, like, if a bird gets within 10 feet of you, you're not really going to need your binoculars at that point. So that's obviously a very personal decision, which I'll let you decide for yourself. But that is one of the only negatives I can say. If you move up to the 52, other than the size, if you're talking about just the view itself, you are going to lose a little bit of that close focusing distance. So on the other hand, what I did want to highlight is that the speed of the focus wheel and the amount that you need to rotate it to go from close focus to infinity is about the same. So I don't have some kind of precision instrument to measure the exact number of revolutions that I go, but what I did, and you can also do this for yourself, is I rotated the focus wheel until it stopped, and then going back to the other end, what I did is I just took my finger and I measured how many times does my finger have to go across the whole bridge until it stops moving. And you can see I'm doing that again here. That's 4 times, and it almost gets to a fifth complete turnaround of that bridge before it stops. So I'm going to do the same thing on the 10 by 42 here. Again, spinning it until it stops on one way. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. And in fact, in that case, it went just past 5. So all I'm trying to illustrate here is that the amount that you need to rotate the focus wheel to get from the nearest focusing distance out to infinity is about the same with the 10 by 42 and the 10 by 52. So when it comes to, going between like 10 yards and 30 yards to focus on different birds or different, whatever you're looking at, I don't think you're going to notice a real discernible, difference in these two, because the speed of the focus and the ease of the focus, how easy it is to turn that wheel, is basically the exact same. Just wanted to highlight that real quick. So moving on, of course, I didn't have this on at the beginning of the video because it's technically an add-on. It's not part of the binoculars, but yes, you can absolutely use the forehead rest with these larger NL Pures. So those of you that have tried the forehead rest, most of you guys love it. I mean, I see a lot of people come into our store and try this and say, oh my God, how come this isn't made for every binocular, right? So all that forehead rest does is, typically with any binocular, you've got the eye cups twisted up and you can bury those in your eye sockets to give you some stability. But when you spin that forehead rest out and have that little pad against your forehead, it gives you an extra little anchor point so that the binoculars can't bob up and down as much. Of course, this can also be used with the 14 by 52, any of the 42 millimeter binoculars, and any of the 32 millimeter NL Pures. So that is cross compatible. On top of that, the 10 by 52s are actually introducing one more new feature that I haven't talked about yet, which is if you pop off that little end piece, Swarovski is going to make a dedicated tripod adapter specifically for the NL Pure, and it's really, really secure the way that it actually fits inside the bridge. I can't illustrate that yet because it hasn't been released, but what they've also told us is that the 42 millimeter and the 32 millimeter binoculars are going to have the ability to be retrofitted if you send them in, so that you can use them with a traditional tripod adapter that just fits into the middle. Not with any of the ones that use a 1/4-20 screw, but with Swarovski's new adapter that they're coming out with, sooner or later you're going to be able to use that with any of the size NL Pure binoculars that they make. So that's pretty important for most of the people in the hunting community that want, a really steady platform and want an adapter that's not going to be a burden to take with them. So yeah, I think that's as concisely as I can put it. I don't know how many minutes we're going on now, but I wanted to give you guys the full picture and help you understand the differences between the old and the new. I'm beyond excited to start using this in the field. My only problem right now is that I do have the 10 by 42 NL Pure, and now I just want the 10 by 52 for that extra low light performance, because just to recap some of the differences, I didn't see any difference in field of view or depth of field, which are the main disadvantages that you usually get when you move up a size. The only difference I can really say as a negative is the close focus. So on occasion, I might have to take a few steps back to get those hummingbirds in focus, but given the extra brightness that you get with the larger size, I really think it's worth it. So we're going to have a lot more information coming up on our website soon. Please visit opticsforbirding.com for more. You can also reach out to us on social media if you have any questions, and if that's how you're seeing this, we'd love to chat there. But if you wanted to get a one-on-one discussion going and ask as many questions as you could possibly think of, please give us a call at 877-674-2473. This is our bread and butter. I can't wait to talk your ear off about these things and tell you why you need one. So once again, NL Pure 10 by 52 and 14 by 52 binoculars are now on the market. I can't wait to show you more about them. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.